and to imply that we should just ignore the impact that Caitlin Clark had on this team, this league, this sport. Nah, it doesn't work.
After basketball superstar Sue Bird changed her mind about Caitlin Clark, the WNBA went completely insane.
Sue Bird calls out ESPN host for, quote, hating on WNBA playoff ratings after Caitlin Clark's exit. You said what?
Yes, that's correct. Sue Bird, a former Caitlin admirer, criticized Stephen A. Smith, claiming that the WNBA is doing well without Clark. Caitlin may be moving to Europe, but she is also taking a wonderful break at the moment. Sue also thinks the statistics are still really high, which is untrue.
Has been impacting the WNBA well before this year. This is not a new thing. Sure. This is, and in that way, I do think Caitlin's being used as a pawn. Caitlin didn't bring systems to the WNBA. This has been happening, and that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us.
Sue appeared to have had enough of Caitlin's defense, as her absence has caused a stir on social media, with fans demanding her return and refusing to watch anymore. WNBA.
Viewership numbers with Caitlin Clark are astronomical. She is a big draw. She brings in all the things. And yes, the games where she's not playing have lower viewership. But in the WNBA playoffs are still breaking records from previous WNBA years.
Without Caitlin, the facts are present. Following a declining trajectory, the WNBA is returning to reality with each game played. Although viewership has decreased without Caitlin, Sue thinks that Caitlin's absence from basketball won't have any negative effects at all.
I don't want it to grow if it's certain people at the face. And there is still this undertone of jealousy that for some reason I cannot get around calling it anything else but that, because I don't know what else it could be. I thought it was going to get better this season, but it hasn't. There are still people who seemingly, to me, feel like they just don't want Caitlin to be a part.
Rachel DEA raised an excellent point. When Caitlin is the face of the sport, WNBA legends don't want it to advance. They would rather start over than face the competition Caitlin brings.
What's the problem, Sue Bird? I know that you gave her props and you acknowledged how phenomenal she was in terms of a draw. What Shannon Sharp and I were guilty of saying was that not enough folks were appreciating it.
The WNBA was completely changed by Caitlin Clark's arrival, but as she left the playoffs, it seemed as though the league had lost its soul. With rumors of turmoil in Europe growing, the league may potentially be in serious peril. WNBA legend Sue Bird had nothing but positive things to say about Caitlin Clark at first. In her early remarks, Sue Bird had been a vocal supporter of Clark, believing that she was a player who could improve the game. Sue Bird saw that Caitlin Clark had the potential to completely transform women's basketball and wasn't just another rookie.
Moved home games to bigger arenas when Indiana came to town to accommodate more fans. I'm not finished. Attendance for the entire league is up nearly 50% this year, and Indiana leads all teams with an average attendance of 17,035, up 319% from a year ago.
However, things took a surprising turn when Sub Bird started downplaying Clark's impact. This was surprising, especially coming from someone who had previously spoken so highly of Clark. In contrast, Bird seemed to suggest that the league's recent struggles had little to do with Clark's absence. This abrupt change in Bird's viewpoint left many fans perplexed and even incensed. If there is one person who has consistently supported Caitlin Clark, it is Stephen A. Smith, who is known for his bold opinions and unfiltered commentary. Smith has never been one to back down from controversy, and when Clark left the playoffs, he didn't hold back when stating that the playoff excitement had been ruined by Clark's absence.
Say the ratings aren't the same with Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever now eliminated. Game 1 of the Aces Liberty matchup on Sunday drew an average of 929,000 viewers. Was down nearly 50% from last Sunday's Fever Sun contest. By the way, not only was viewership down,
Smith emphasized that the WNBA had lost its largest draw as a result of Clark's departure, pointing out that viewership had drastically decreased and that the league needed to acknowledge how crucial she was to their success. Smith's position was more than just a casual remark. It was a call to action. He felt that the WNBA should do more to support players like Clark and maintain the momentum, but Sue Bird wasn't having it. She publicly criticized Stephen A. Smith for his remarks, claiming that he was incorrect to blame Caitlin Clark's absence alone for the drop in playoff viewership. Bird retorted that there were other factors at work and that the excitement surrounding the playoffs wasn't reliant on a single player. Fans and commentators engaged in a contentious argument after Bird refuted Smith's assertions. On the one hand, you had Caitlin Clark, according to Stephen A. Smith, was the main cause of the enthusiasm surrounding the playoffs, but you had an icon in the sport. Sue Bird maintained that the WNBA was greater than any one player, even one with Clark's level of influence.
A lot of this noise came by people that were sitting on this network. They tried to minimize her, said, well, you giving her all this credit. What about the women that came before her? What the women came before her, what they did cannot be taken away. That ain't got nothing to do with Caitlin Clark. But there was a lot of people tried to make sure they keep Caitlin Clark in her place, because what you're doing, if you give her all this shine, you minimize what they done. We saw the ratings, we saw the merchandise sales, we saw the attendance, but y'all want to make it about some.
Sue Bird continued to challenge Stephen A. Smith after that. She redoubled her efforts to deny that Caitlin Clark's absence was the main reason for the decline in NBA viewership, even as ratings fell after her departure. This refusal to acknowledge the Caitlin Clark effect left many fans frustrated because the numbers didn't lie. Viewership had spiked when Clark was playing, and it had dropped significantly when she was no longer on the court, indicating that there were other reasons for the decline that didn't sit well with those who had been closely following the playoffs. Fans noted that the excitement surrounding the games had noticeably decreased following Clark's departure, and it was difficult to ignore the correlation between her departure and the decline in ratings. But despite this, Bird persisted in refusing to give Clark the credit many felt she deserved.
Clark has created more buzz around the basketball landscape and has actually transformed and revived a league that was the WNBA, and she is getting paid a measly $28 million.
As the controversy surrounding Caitlin Clark's influence raged, it became increasingly clear that Bird's refusal to accept Clark's influence left many fans feeling as though the WNBA's veterans were out of touch with the league's current situation. Fans who had once been drawn to the WNBA because of Clark's performances now felt alienated by the very legends they had once admired. The fact that Bird, who was once seen as a mentor to younger players, was now downplaying Clark's significance worried many, as it made them wonder if the WNBA was prepared to change or if it was stuck in the past and unwilling to fully embrace the next generation of stars. One of the most perplexing elements of this whole scenario has been the NBA's unwillingness to acknowledge Caitlin Clark's influence in its entirety. It was evident that Clark was unique as soon as she joined the league.
Don't y'all want a greater profile? Don't y'all want more notoriety? Don't y'all want more hype? I understand that it's going on still without her now that she's out of the playoffs because the games have been great. But the fact of the matter is, she swelled the interest in the sport.
Her games attracted large crowds despite the fact that her social media presence was unprecedented and her ability to connect with fans set her apart from many of her peers. The WNBA appeared hesitant to fully embrace the Caitlin Clark effect. Whether this was because of internal politics, jealousy from other players, or a simple refusal to acknowledge her star power, the WNBA failed to capitalize on the wave of interest that Clark brought to the league. Instead of promoting her as the league's face, the league seemed content to let her rise on her own without the full support of its promotional machine. This decision would prove costly as the league's viewership numbers started to decline after Clark left the playoffs.
The Caitlin Clark effect is definitely real. I mean, we can all see that. However, experiencing it in person is totally different. I was at the Fever in Indiana game last night, and the amount of 22s that I saw on the way to the arena and inside the Capital One Arena might as well have just been a home game for Caitlin Clark. Not Indiana, Caitlin Clark. The thing is, that didn't surprise me. But what did surprise me was how packed the game.
The WNBA lost out on a chance to expand its fan base and establish its position in the sports industry by not fully understanding the Caitlin Clark effect. Instead, it now has to deal with dwindling viewership, irate supporters, and little buzz surrounding its major events. The league is in a vulnerable position that could be challenging to overcome as a result of its unwillingness to accept Clark's star power. Stephen A. Smith continues to be one of Caitlin Clark's most outspoken backers. Others, however, have minimized or completely disregarded her contributions. Smith has continuously criticized what he perceives to be an attempt to harm Clark. Smith has discussed how opponents have singled out Clark with fouls and ignored him when it comes to league-wide recognition, pointing out that the league appears to treat him differently than other players, whether it be through on-court targeting or a lack of off-court promotion.
Stephen A, respectfully, with your platform, you could have been doing this 3 years ago if you wanted to.
All right, we gotta go.
Stephen A, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you.
Wow.
Don't do that. I'm talking to you about the power that you have.
Really
you
appreciate
missed, my girl, but you've missed a lot of episodes of first.
Many of Caitlin Clark's supporters are starting to call for her to leave the WNBA entirely as the controversy surrounding her treatment there intensifies. They contend that Clark would be better off playing in the EuroLeague, where she would probably be treated with more respect and have better financial opportunities. They also believe that Clark's talents would be fully appreciated and she wouldn't have to deal with the constant harassment and abuse she endures in the WNBA. This movement among Clark supporters is becoming louder by the day, with many urging her to leave the league sooner rather than later. They feel that the WNBA has revealed its true colors and that Clark would be better off playing in a league that values her contributions and skills.
Would be a team overseas who would love to snatch Caitlin Clark away from us and give her a crazy offer. I mean, Ice Cube was about to give her $5 million to play in less than 10 games in the Big Three. So the money is there, and if these owners are smart with it, I could definitely see more WNBA players going overseas and possibly not.
Another main reason why supporters want Caitlin Clark to think about leaving the WNBA is the financial potential in Europe. Since the WNBA hasn't been able to fully utilize her star power, the EuroLeague may be able to provide her with a more lucrative career in Europe. Fans of women's basketball contend that Clark would not only make more money but also receive the respect she is due as one of the best players in the league if she lived in Europe. Instead, Clark would be able to concentrate on her strengths, which include dominating on the court and building her reputation as one of the most exciting players in the game. It is a secret that Caitlin Clark's dominance has made her a target within the WNBA, with some legends and current players choosing to ignore these players contend that Caitlin Clark is too good and that her presence makes the league more competitive than they would like, and they have publicly stated their desire for her to leave the league because they feel that it would be better off without her, even if it means sacrificing viewership. Some players view Clark as a threat because of her ability to improve play, especially those who are accustomed to being the league's top stars. Rather than seeing her as a welcome addition, they see her as someone who upsets the status quo. This jealousy has sparked a growing movement among some players to force Clark out of the WNBA, even if it means fewer fans will watch.
When they got eliminated from the playoffs, the attendance dropped. Right. The ratings drop. If WNBA is more, it is, and I get it. Why aren't people watching?
Even more unexpected is the fact that some players are prepared to put up with lower viewership if it means they won't have to face Caitlin Clark. This attitude exposes a more serious problem within the WNBA rather than encouraging the league to develop and advance. If it means avoiding the fierce rivalry that Clark brings to the court, some players would rather to see it stay stagnant. They are ready to forego viewership for while the WNBA should be concentrating on expansion and gaining new fans. Some of its players appear more interested in preserving their own domination, even if it means jeopardizing the league's success. Less competition says a lot about the state of the league.
I feel like after the break, I still don't think she's dominating, but she's a different player than she was in the first half of the season.
Despite all of the criticism she has encountered, Caitlin Clark has had an overwhelmingly positive impact on the WNBA. She has increased viewership, attracted new fans, and made the game more competitive. Her ability to raise awareness of women's basketball is unparalleled, and she has emerged as a beacon of hope for the sport's future. Despite her many accomplishments, the WNBA and some of its legends still refuse to fully acknowledge Clark's impact. Rather than celebrating her success, they seem intent on downplaying it. Clark's on-court performances have been nothing short of spectacular, and her ability to connect with fans has made her one of the league's most popular players. In addition to being unfair, this failure to give Clark the recognition she merits is harmful to the league's expansion. It's obvious that Caitlin Clark's legacy will continue to shape the future of women's basketball whether the WNBA is ready to accept it or not. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like. The WNBA has undoubtedly been broken by Caitlin Clark's exit from the playoffs. The league has experienced declining viewership and the unwillingness of some of its most prominent figures to recognize Clark's importance as fans call for her to move to Europe and the league struggles to recover from her absence. And subscribe, there are now more videos visible.